Hello again, Steve here with a few comments on why I think Trump was not able to, or didn't, I shouldn't say not able to, why he didn't mention Tommy Robinson in his address at Chequers there with Theresa May. I think there was an opportunity missed, although hard for me to say. I mean, I think my assessment as to why he didn't mention it is because he's playing chess. He's playing international chess in a way, right? He has to sacrifice some of his potential gains for the bigger picture. So he had to get Theresa May on board with him meeting Putin, as Theresa May calls him, Putin. But he had to get her on board, I think, because he has to, in spite of the fact that he hates the mainstream media and the whole priestly class, which is in a big witch hunt since the time that he took office, because he's a producer class, right? And they want to knock down the producer class, and he wants to uphold them. So they've been the big witch hunt has been going on, and the bugbear, the enemy, is this Putin guy, and he's going to meet with him, because that's what all presidents do eventually. And so he got her on board, and if he'd have pissed her off by mentioning Tommy Robinson, which certainly would piss her off, right? Because that is a huge embarrassment for the British government right now. Huge, massive embarrassment. I mean, think about it. There's an appeal launched. The Israelis are supporting, Tommy Robinson now because Muslims hate Jews, and they want a guy who was thrown in jail ostensibly for criticizing Islam to be released. Of course they do, right? And he's a hero for them, basically. And England can't say anything about Israel. But anyways, so there's huge amounts of money have been, I don't know how much, but funneled into his defense fund. And when you have a huge amount of money funneled into a defense fund, you hire the best lawyers. When you hire the best lawyers, you're going to get an appeal, because you're hiring the insiders, right? You're hiring the insider gang, the gang members on the inside. You're hiring them to bring it back out again. And the mainstream media is not talking about this, but what is it? The chief justice of all of England is going to preside over this. I mean, there's no higher office, in the legal system over there that's going to preside over this. This would be big news if it was anything else, but the government wants to hush it up. So it would have been a stack blown all across the world if Trump had mentioned this. But he didn't, because he's strategic. Sure as hell he knows about it. And to his credit, though, when asked about immigration there, he answered it vaguely but very directly. And he basically said, and he pointed out, he said, you guys see what's going on. I mean, he's probably referencing the thousands of little girls who were raped, who Tommy Robinson was trying to bring light to, which the British government aided and abetted in for years and years, decades, right? The police, the military, the media, the whole works aided and abetted in it, which is just absolutely staggering. Absolutely staggering. But anyways, I think that's why, mainly the reason why he couldn't mention that. And you can see too, when Trump is not on his own land, he's in England, right? He's standing there and he's a bit uncomfortable, because he's wanting to be a little bit diplomatic. And unfortunately, when he does go on script, which somebody had scripted something for him, and he's got to read it. He's not a great reader. I mean, not a public reader. He doesn't do a lot of that all of his life. He can hire people to read publicly for him if he wants to. I mean, Theresa May just blah 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 blah. She just reads something off with her head down the whole time. She just reads. She's a politician, right? She's good at reading. She's probably a lawyer. I don't know what she was before. Trump's not that. Trump's a guy who talks to people in his own language. So he reads a sentence and then he starts talking, just off script. It's really hilarious. And this is why people think he's stupid. People who are not very smart think he's stupid, who'd make comments like that. And because he doesn't read, he's not versed. He doesn't read a lot, probably, aloud. I mean, why would he? He's not practiced in that. So when he does it, he looks a little clumsy. He's much more comfortable just speaking off the cuff. But I wish he had somehow alluded to that, to what's going on in England. And, the comment about Boris Johnson, I think, was a good one, though, because he does push a little bit. He does push a little bit. I mean, Boris Johnson recently abandoned Theresa May, my understanding is, some senior minister or whatever in the English government, because Theresa May's government is in rough shape, apparently, and the the Tommy Robinson incident is an example of them trying to cover up their misdeeds, and it might be backfiring on them because the crowds seem to be growing in the protests, and the fact that the trial date has been moved up, and this unbelievably senior, like unprecedented, this kind of a senior, this judge, he's the judge of all the judges, basically, all the senior judges. He's the judge of all the senior judges. He's the one who's going to preside over this, and completely unprecedented, as far as I know, in recent history anyway. It should be the most observed court case in the world going on right now, or at least in England. But it won't be, of course. Why? Because of what it is, right? I mean, this would be to acknowledge that they might be, the media and the politicians would be reversing their policy, which was to protect the Muslim rape gangs, which they were doing for years and years and years, and to protect and to begin to protect little girls, which they haven't been, right? Because when you allow thousands of little girls to be raped and you defend the rapists, you're not a government of the people for the people. I don't care what anybody says. Of course, they never were, right? They are, the Prime Minister is the Queen's Minister, not the Minister of the people, right? So anyways, this is my take on it, and a little jaded probably, but hey, anytime I'm talking about government, that's what it has to be, right? Because it's the opposite of freedom. And I'm for freedom, see? Hashtag Freedom Walk. That's the flag I walked 8,000 kilometers for a couple of years ago for freedom. It's the book I wrote right there. It's not completely published yet, but anyway, Steve here again. Great chatting. Talk again soon. And if you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.